So I want to welcome you all to this beautiful presentation this morning on what is Tantra. My name is Caroline Carrington and I'm a NeoTantra educator in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm so honored to have Acharya Mangalananda with us today to share more about what authentic or classical Tantra is. I think there are a lot of misnomers in the West about what is often called Tantra actually is, and we're hoping to clear some of those up today.
Yeah, let's start with it, as you were saying it right. People say Tantra or Tantra. The word is Tantra. It's a soft ta with ta, ra is ra. Tantra. The adjective is tantric. So we'll start with the pronunciation.
Thank you. Am I mispronouncing it?
You were doing fine.
Oh, I was doing okay, good. I try and get it right, but yeah, it's so often mispronounced, and the energetics of the words, of the Sanskrit words, make a huge difference as well.
And for starters, we'll have introductions and things, but in India we always start with what's called the sankalpa. Sankalpa is the setting of the will, setting of the intention of what you want to accomplish. Whether we do a puja or a worship or a practice, we set our will and what we want to accomplish. So my sankalpa for this session is to illuminate the word tantra, showing at least a glimpse of what it really is, and to separate it from the neo-tantra or sexuality school, which has been so confused with. Because I'm not trying to say one is right, one is wrong, one is better, one is worse. Simply make the distinction between the two and show what real Tantra is. Because it's been a very misused term. It's been taken and actually slandered. So I want to give a glimpse of what Tantra is and how it's distinctive from Neo-Tantra. We can talk about that more. So you want to introduce us?
Great, thank you. I'm really delighted. Some of you are familiar with Mangalananda, but we really have a very esteemed man. He's very humble, but sitting next to us today. And my intention for this is especially to inform my audience who they follow me mostly to learn about sacred sexuality, the real difference between these traditions, and to invite them, as I've been invited over the last 8+ years, into a deeper inquiry about what Tantra actually is. I'll start with a little story, if it's okay, about one of the times I first encountered Mangalananda Acharya, and it was at a festival in the Joshua Tree Desert, and I was at one of his classes, and he was talking about Shakti. I'm intimidated to explain these terms in front of him because I'm sure he can do it much better than I can, but this aspect of divine feminine energy. And you were saying something to the likes of, Shakti's in everything. Shakti's in the speaker. Shakti's in the rocks. And at the time, I couldn't get my head around that. And hopefully these days I have a better sense of what that is. But
sure you do.
That invited me to go a little deeper and to start attending your kirtans, your chanting offerings in the Bay Area. And I'm very grateful we get to sit here today.
Yeah, this is fun. Like I say, I'm having fun already. This is a subject very dear to my heart.
So do you want to share a little bit about your journey into becoming an Acharya and what that even means?
Yeah, and also I think before anyone speaks, they should give their credentials, so to speak, to let you know if you go to a doctor's office, you want to see the certificates on the wall that the person did go to medical school and has some experience. So let me just briefly my credentials of why I can at least give some kind of talk about this. I was telling Carolyn before we started, I learned Tantra by basically the same way a child would be taught swimming if they're thrown into the deep end of a pool. And you just have to learn to swim by doing it. I never wanted to, excuse me, to practice Tantra in a sense. When I was 19 years old, I came to India just to meet my guru, Anandamayi Ma, who was a great revered woman saint of the 20th century. And I just came and I asked her, I said, I want to find God. I want to begin my spiritual life, and I ask you to guide me. And she guided me, and I did what she told me. I didn't realize I was actually practicing Tantra at the time. And she began by giving me initiation into a Shakti mantra, which is a mantra of the Divine Mother, of the goddess. and gave me some practices. And then I've lived within her lineage for over 40 years. Well, we're actually over 50 years now. And that, excuse me, it's morning. You receive the empowerment and the guidance originally from the Guru, but you learn the practice from the lineage by being with people who practice it and have put it into practice and are living it. And I lived with many of Ma's really great disciples, both in India and America for many years. I lived 12 years in India in her ashram in Omkareshwar in central India. Just in doing the practices that she taught me, I slowly realized this is a tantric practice. So let's go way back to the beginning. Let's start with cosmology. I'll tell you what, here's the definition I know of Tantra. Tantra is a sacred, ancient, scriptural science, and its one purpose is to bring expansion of consciousness into the real self of each practitioner and connect them with the Divine Mother, and through her guidance to experience the truth of what is in ourselves, in the world, in the universe. It's to expand consciousness into truth through the guidance of the Divine Mother. And it does this through the main tools are mantra, yantra, and kriya. Mantra are sound formulas, revealed divine sound formulas. Yantra are the geometric designs that these formulas make when they vibrate. And kriya is conscious movement of energy, usually very internal, through willpower and mantra and breath and things. And it's a very specific divine science. But let's go into cosmology a little bit. Who and what is the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, the archetypal female principle? If we look just briefly into cosmology, when the one Brahman, this is Hindu cosmology, the one Brahman, which is divinity beyond name and form, beyond comprehension, beyond attributes, just infinite consciousness existing alone. When this one Brahman decides to project creation, because creation is also eternal, because it's projected and withdrawn throughout eternity. When Brahman projects creation, there's no such thing as creation really, nothing is created. Brahman projects itself, and immediately it splits into two because creation is duality. It splits into male and female, or positive and negative. The underlying consciousness on which everything rests is called Purusha or Shiva. And then the creation itself is this constantly moving dance of light and color and vibration and sound. And it is the Divine Mother herself. We're literally seeing her everywhere. That's why I'm saying the Shakti's in the speaker.
Yes.
We're seeing her at all times, but not perceiving it correctly. So this movement is the Divine Mother herself resting on Shiva. And they are one. When Shiva moves, he becomes Shakti. When Shakti rests, he becomes Shiva. So it's one divinity manifesting as this. And we say she's feminine because she's archetypal feminine energy. So every woman, every female of every species, even a female lizard, is a manifestation of the Divine Mother. You are the Divine Mother, but even that gets misrepresented sometimes. And every male is a repetition of this archetypal Shiva. So that's where we're. And the Divine Mother, who is the Divine Mother? The Divine Mother is divinity expressed in two aspects. First, as Shakti, as perfect power. All power is feminine. It really is. All power is feminine. That's a whole subject to itself. But she also expresses as total maternal energy. She's the loving, we say this beautiful prayer. We say, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mata Rupena Sanstita Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha. O Divine Mother, who appears Sarva Bhuteshu, in every being as motherhood. We bow to you again and again. So every mother in creation who we see caring for their children, and we see a chicken keeping her little children under her wings, we see every expression of maternal love is the Divine Mother herself manifesting through that person. So she is infinitely loving to us. this universe is her womb in which she's gestating all these souls, these jivas, all of us, bringing us to full realization of our own divine nature. That is her job. That is the universe's job, is to gestate us into giving birth into divinity, full realization. So it's the mother who has pulled us up from life to life, from form to form, from being a rock to being a vegetable to being a duck, to eventually being in this human form where we can realize God because we have the psychic network in which to become self-aware. So it's the mother who's been doing this. And then when we become self-aware, and through her grace we begin practicing conscious spiritual life, which is only through her grace, then we can start working in conscious union with her and speed up the process incredibly. And every spiritual tradition always says it's through the mother that you get the revelation. Whether it's Christianity through the Holy Virgin Mary, in Sufism you have different aspects of divinity, even in Buddhism you have Tara. Of course, in Hinduism, you have this vast array of devis, of goddess manifestations, and they say that we'll talk about the tantric worldview distinctions from the yogic worldview at one point. But one thing is, we have this idea in all traditions that there is a force of darkness or a force of delusion that we're struggling against, and in Hinduism we call it Maya. But Maya is the Divine Mother. And she's Maya, and she is the one keeping us in delusion in a sense. She's keeping us in this way so that the play will go on. Because if suddenly we're all realized, what fun is that? the Leela is over. So she's the one who keeps us in delusion, keeps us in this misidentification with the body, so that the play of creation can continue. So she is also Mahamaya, the great illusionist who then, she's the one who can lift the veil. Since she is appearing as the veil, she herself is perfectly easy, is perfectly free and easily can lift the veil. She's the only one who can lift the veil. So that's the Divine Mother. And Tantra is, there are many spiritual paths. There's a yogic path, there's a Vedic path. Tantra is the path that emphasizes the Divine Mother, and it's very esoteric. As Carolyn and I were talking about that, I'll use this term in explaining Tantra very often. It's esoteric, and that means it's not really for public consumption. Traditionally, Tantra has always been taught guru to shishya, that's teacher to student only, mouth to ear. Training has been very, a person has to be qualified to even understand Tantra and to be taught Tantra, and it's a hazardous path if not guided by an illumined master who knows the path. So Tantra was always taught esoterically, secretly within the yogic traditions, and it's always been a science of extreme subtlety. That the whole thing is about expanding consciousness into divinity. The tantric scriptures are mostly couched in terms of question and answer between Shiva and Parvati, or different names. Sometimes it's called Bhairava and Bhairavi. And Parvati is not asking, Shiva, can you tell me, how do I have a better relationship with my boyfriend and have better sex? The idea is insane. She'll ask, what is the nature of reality? What are the different tattvas, principles within this? How do we attain to higher consciousness? It's things like this. So the idea that this sacred word Tantra has been taken, just as the word yoga has been so blasphemed in the West, they just took the essence of Hatha Yoga, which is the movement of, and introduced it and made this big multi-billion-dollar industry where you have yogic clothes now, and if you have a water bottle and a yoga mat, you're a yogi. Where yoga is this great science propounded by the sage Patanjali about how you still the mind and find the inner essence of the self. So Tantra is even given a worse rap, and it's taken sexuality, which we'll talk about how I won't say sexuality is not a part of Tantra, because everything is a part of Tantra. Tantra takes all of life experience, all energy, and transmutes it into divinity. But it's just, I look on the internet sometimes and I'm just freaked out. All these weekend retreats on Tantra are always about relationships and sex, always. And it's as incongruous as if a person came to a weekend seminar on quantum physics, the science of quantum physics, and they come in and everybody's talking about sex and relationships, that the person would say, "Excuse me, am I in the wrong room?" And so to take this subtle, esoteric science of consciousness and associate it with just relationships is insane. But at the same time, we're going to talk about it some. Obviously, there's a place for this sacred sexuality, for nurturing relationships, for having better sex. I'm not against that. I think that's a part of human life, and instruction in that I'm sure can be very helpful. But what we're trying to do here is separate the two terms and see what Tantra is and what Neo-Tantra is, or sacred sexuality. So that's an overview. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sorry, I haven't got rid of the waiting room. And thank you for your questions in the chat. We'll do our very best to get to them. We've definitely got more to talk about in an hour than I think we're going to have time for.
Yeah, it's an infinite subject.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but as a layperson, some of my understanding about what classical Tantra is, it has to do with texts, for example, that lay out, like a Tantra is a text that will lay out specific mantras and specific rituals that you perform in honor of the deity or the guru.
Yes.
Okay, so just to...
And like I say, I know Tantra from just having been thrown into the midst of it and practiced it. And I moved back from India in 2013, but for 40 years before that, I was living in different ashrams, traveling as a sadhu with sadhus, really immersed in it, in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment life, and being with people who lived it. So I'm not a pundit. I'm not a scriptural lawyer or something. I studied the scriptures that were relevant to my daily practice. I learned Tantra and the rituals what pertain to me and my daily practice. So I can speak from experience in what I know of it, but like I say, I'm not a scholar, so I haven't studied it on a scholarly level, so I can't quote verse and numbers of verses and chapter and all that
There's
stuff.
going to be no test today.
Yeah. So I'll just explain what I've experienced through my own kind of organic living and perception of Tantra, I didn't take a course or see a YouTube video.
There's a little more deep than that. How many years were you in India?
Oh, I've been going to India since 1973, back and forth, but then I lived 12 years in succession from 2001 to 2013. I was sent by Ma's main Swami Bhaskarnanda, to an ashram called Omkareshwar, a great Shiva shrine in central India on the Narmada River. I was helped start a school there and lived there doing my sadhana and based there, but also I traveled extensively throughout India many times doing pilgrimages and things. And then we've now started a new project called Ma Sharanam in central India, which is a project dedicated to Ma, and it's a tantric ashram. And explain that in every tantric ashram you have a murti, a figure of Bhairav Shiva as the guardian on the front gate, and a Hanuman shrine as the guardian on the back, and the Devi temple in the middle, and we have that. But as we say, it's a tantric ashram. Don't go there expecting orgies and great sex. It's a very disciplined ashram of the divine feminine, and Anandamayi Ma, who is a embodiment, a manifestation of the divine feminine.
Can you tell us a little more about your guru? And perhaps also how you became an Acharya, which, if I understand correctly, is a lineage holder in her tradition. Is that true?
Yeah. I wrote a small kind of introductory book at the prompting of the head of our ashram, because he said there's many big books about Ma, but we need a small book. So it's called A Goddess Among Us. It's on Amazon. It's a small book, and it just has a sketch of her life and some of her teachings and some of my memories of being with her. But if you've read the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, which is a wonderful spiritual classic, Yogananda actually met Ma in her early days, I think in 1936, when she was young. And he was so impressed about her, he wrote an entire chapter in his book about her. He called it the bliss-permeated mother of Bengal. I met her when she was quite young, quite old, and was equally impressed with her. I just had this experience with her in America, so I went to India to find her and to stay with her and receive Diksha from her. Then I lived in her ashrams many years with her disciples, and as a monk, 40 years, the last 10 years of which I was given sannyas, a very simple sannyas. That's the I guess you could say the official monastic groupings in India of swamis. I was given Swami Mangalananda. And then with my sannyas guru's permission, I stepped down from sannyas. When I left India in 2013 and was married to a wonderful devotee. But I was given the title Acharya. It just means I'm not a guru or anything in my own right. I simply have, according to the assessment of the ashram and the people there, I've lived the teachings of mine, studied them enough of Anandamayi Ma, that they asked me to try to share them with people and pass them on in the best way I could find. So I try to do that. I try to just direct people to Ma and her teachings. We have a monthly Zoom satsang. You're welcome to come every third Sunday of the month. People from all over the world come. Some of our people here I'm seeing on the screen here are there every month. Michael and Gabriel. To learn more of Ma. I was only with Ma during 1973 and 74. In those 2 years, I traveled with Ma all over India because she moved incessantly for 50 years. And I tried to stay as close as possible to her and have my eyes resting on her as many hours a day as I could. And then I came back. I was living in an ashram in America of hers, and I wasn't able to return to her before she left her body a few years later. But I've been in various ashrams. Let's go into now. I spent a couple of years in one ashram with a tantric yogi and with a small group of yogis who were doing a lot of tantric rituals. And we explored a lot of interesting kriyas. Like I say, a kriya is a conscious movement of energy through the body, usually in the spine. It can be other things too. This particular yogi knew a lot of kriyas, and he wanted to really experiment with different ones and see what effect they had on consciousness. And so we did learn these amazingly complex kriyas, like we were visualizing the different yantras, all the chakras, and in the upper movement is warm and the down is cold, and it's just doing all these complex things and going into chakras in the head, in the hands, and through the whole body. We did one thing, it was translated as the adorning of the bride. And it was psychically tuning the soul to inner vibrations. And the conclusion we came to at the end of all this was that all these kriyas will produce sometimes a very dramatic psychic phenomena within the practitioner, but it didn't so much deepen consciousness. What really deepened consciousness was the simple practice of sitting and saying the mantra with the breath. So that was the conclusion, is these kriyas are good, they have their place in opening a session or attaining a certain immediate kind of psychic results, but the real deepening of consciousness comes from the simple repetition of God's name through the breath. And I also saw in this yogi that he was doing a lot of these things just for the power of it. And it did create power. You can even get siddhis, that's the kind of psychic powers, and it's a total distraction from the real goal of spiritual life. So it taught me many things. It taught me that you have to constantly purify your intention of why you're doing spiritual life, and doing just for attaining God and not for attaining power and cities and all these things too. I've lost my total train of thought.
That's okay, you're getting lost in Ma. That's beautiful. I want to go to some of the questions we're getting, because I love those that have joined us on Zoom. And somebody is asking, can you explain the word Tantra and what the actual meaning is?
Yeah, there is, as in all Sanskrit words, there is a deep etymological meaning. Trying to put it into words. Tantra. It comes from the root which is opening. So I think you could say it means opening into vastness. I think that could be an accurate translation. Opening into vastness.
If I may.
Or infinity, you say, yeah.
The way I've heard it described is like practices that will stretch you and help you to expand. And the metaphor is that it's like an expansion on a loom when something is stretched on a loom. But yeah, it's practices that will help to expand your consciousness.
Yeah.
I'm not a Sanskrit scholar like you.
I'm not such a scholar. See, I've just learned things that pertain to how I keep walking day by day.
And now
that is the idea, though. It is expansion. And if you look at the questions between Bhairav and Bhairavi, they're often like that. How do we expand from this? What is the next tattva up? How do you go? And it's very subtle and very refined. Yeah.
And then my experience of being in India, which isn't obviously as extensive as yours, I've only had the opportunity to go twice in this lifetime, but there is a lot of division by gender, the masculine and the feminine, and even when you go to pray, the men pray on one side and the women pray on another side.
Which is, excuse me, I want you to continue, but
Yeah.
that is actually an energetic thing.
Oh, explain that.
Because the shrine is here and the positive and negative fields will be here, and it makes the energy flow like this. When men and women are all mixed together, the energy is confused.
Interesting.
So many Sanatana Dharma, which is what we call Hinduism, it means Sanatana Dharma, the eternal path to God, is very scientifically based. If you can almost take anything and break it down into energy and the scientific explanation, it's amazing. But that's not because of sexuality. It's because of an energy thing. It flows like this and goes in, and it creates an energy pattern.
Oh, that's fascinating. No, well, I wasn't aware. Like, you can go to a Hindu temple and see the deities and even take part in the rituals without any understanding of the energetics behind them. You could just be doing them by rote. But it was quite hard for me as somebody who identifies as queer to have to go and stand in the woman's line, because I don't think of gender in the binary per se. So hearing that there's an actual energetic to it actually helps my view of things. But one of our participants was actually asking, is there a non-binary or gender, a deity, and I know there is, I'm just forgetting the name of the form of Shiva Shakti where they are one.
Yeah, I forget the word name too, but yeah, it's a beautiful deity where half is male, half is female, half is Parvati, half is Shiva, where they've actually joined, and their participation, their energies are flowing so perfectly back together that they're one. Which is a beautiful concept, because in spirituality, Ma said it many times, we are in an inner body by birth of a particular gender, but each person has within them the male and female principles, or tattvas. We talk about tattvas a lot in we talk about tattvas a lot in Tantra, and that means it's the principle, the basic, unique principle of something. So everyone has male and female within them, and in one thing in spirituality, we begin to bring out more our opposite side. And so a woman should become stronger and more have the male principles of stability and strength. And then a man should have to develop the principles of maternal blessing. I think a perfect example of that is Paramahansa Yogananda. Paramahansa Yogananda was a physically beautiful being. He had this long hair, and on one level you couldn't even tell if he was a man or a woman. But he was extremely masculine in the sense that he had this incredible dynamism. He was a man's man. He'd been in sports when he was young. He was very vivacious and strong and supportive. And then he was also very feminine. He was a mother. He was this loving mother to his disciples. And even his features, or you can't tell, they're almost like masculine and feminine. And so he had perfectly balanced the masculine and the feminine within himself. So he was almost like a Shiva Shakti representation like that, where he had both the energies playing together in a really beautiful basis.
Beautiful. So it is possible to bring this inner balance so that it's not all just in duality. That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. But my noticing in India is things are mostly delineated very much according to a gender binary, which we're breaking down a lot in the Western world.
Yeah. Excuse me. And there is a very patriarchal side to Hinduism also. Sanatana Dharma is so vast, and you find it expressed in different ways in parts of India. In South India, in the state of Kerala, there's big maternal families who are run maternally based, where the mother, is the head of the family. And in Bengal, you find many women gurus and household gurus. So it's expressed in different ways. There is, Hinduism is so ancient. A lot of superstition has crept in, a lot of things from Muslim influence has crept in. But it's not all perfect. But there is a balance between the maternal and the paternal within it, I think. Yeah. But it is patriarchal too.
That also is the British influence too.
Some of it, yeah, I think so too.
A symbol that is very commonly used, probably misused, in the Western world is the Shri Yantra. We don't have a picture of it here, but I can post it.
I meant to bring mine. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
I meant to bring mine.
I may have it in one of my books so we can show it on the screen, but otherwise I'm happy to post it for my patrons later. But let's just speak a little bit to the Shri Yantra and what that even is.
Yeah, that's a good question. We talked about how a yantra is a geometric pattern. You have one here, Durga.
I do. I'm just going to try and find the tree yantra in here.
It's a geometric pattern, just as if you put a dish of sand on a structure and you make sounds and things underneath it, it will form patterns in the sand. A yantra is a geometric pattern that a particular mantra forms. So every mantra has a yantra. And they're used, yantra will be used for meditation. It can be for tradaka, you can gaze on it and certain things will happen. It can also be used for invoking the deity, as in Sri Yantra, Sri Vidya. And it's a very powerful tool within Tantra. And what is considered the height of tantric practice is a practice called Sri Vidya. Vidya means knowledge. Sri Vidya means knowledge of Sri, and Sri is an interesting word. Sri is a feminine word. It sometimes translates as holy. We say Sri such and such, it means holy. But Sri is a principle of perfect poise, perfect beauty, perfect grace. They'll even say in South India about it when they're describing a woman, they'll say, oh, she has a lot of Sri. That's considered like the supreme compliment, because it means she's both gracefully feminine, but she has a power to her. So Sri is also a name of Lakshmi, the Divine Mother, in the form of prosperity and balance and beauty. So Sri Yantra is the yantra that expresses Sri, this principle of feminine divinity. And Sri Vidya is a complex science of worshiping the Divine Mother in a particular way through this yantra. And I can only speak through my exposure to having seen it and seen masters in it. I have never been given Sri Vidya to do as my sadhana, so I never delved into it because I wasn't given it. But in our Ma Sharanam ashram in India, our Swami Guru Sharananda, who runs it, was initiated into Sri Vidya by our patron Ashok Kulkarni, who is a very close disciple of Anandamayi Ma. So he practices Sri Vidya. Excuse me. And our temple is set up so all the pujas are done according to Sri Vidya. So it's a very tantric ashram that way. Now Sri Vidya is our Swami Kedarnath was a master in it. And I've seen some of his notebooks, handwritten notebooks, where he has every single angle of because Sri Vidya is a complex combination of different triangles to form this beautiful triangle menagerie here. And each angle of each triangle has a particular mantra and a particular thing. It's very complex. But the idea is you go forward into God from that. There's a deep association of Anandamayi Ma here, my Guru, with Sri Yantra and Sri Vidya. In fact, Ashok Kulkarni says, Ma is Sri Vidya. And she gave the Sri Vidya to only 3 people. Our Swami Kedarnath, who ran the ashram I lived in central India, one of another Swami named Swami Nirgunananda, and to Ashok Kulkarni. And it was a very specific practice she gave only to people she felt could do this, and for a particular reason, it's a particular point in their evolution that they were at, they needed that. And there's a beautiful story which Ashok told me, how he and his wife received Sri Vidya from Anandamayi Ma. Now, a story depends on the person who told it. Ashok Kulkarni is a retired college professor who is a yogi from childhood. He practiced yoga all his life. He was married to a beautiful devotee of Ma, and together they spent years and years in spiritual practice and in Ma's presence. And after he retired, he became one of the most sought-after exponents of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the book, the Vaishnava scripture. He would travel throughout India giving lectures on this. So this is what I'm talking about. This is not some kook. So this man, Ashok Kulkarni, told me how he received Sri Vidya from Ma, Anandamayi Ma. It's written in my book also. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I got something in my throat. He was in Vrindavan, and Ma had mentioned Sri Vidya to him a few times. She says, I think it would be good if you learned Sri Vidya. And it just was a passing comment. So one time they were in Ma's ashram in Vrindavan, and he said just he and his wife were sitting with Ma. And Ma turned to him and said, see, Ma did things through Leela. She knew everything, but she let things unfold in a natural way. She asked him, what is the nakshatra for this hour?
What is nakshatra for those who don't know?
Nakshatra is the astrological, I think it's the moon sign, right? The star sign. It's a part of Vedic Jyotish, Vedic astrology. There's an nakshatra for every birth sign. There's an nakshatra for every hour even. So she just asked, what is the nakshatra for this hour? She meant, is it an auspicious hour? So they didn't know. So they said, we'll go ask Swami Satchidananda, one of my Swamis who was a Danda Swami. That's one of the very high-level Brahmin Swamis who knows all of this intellectual stuff. And he knew Jyotish very well. They went to Swami Satchidananda's room and they asked, what is the nakshatra for this hour? Ma is asking. He said, oh, Ma is asking? Okay. So he looked up the book. He said, I better come and be with you. So the three of them went back to Ma's house, and she said, Ma's room, and they said, Swamiji said, Ma, the nakshatra, of course Ma knew this already, Ma, the nakshatra for this hour is such and such, has a particular sign and everything. And Ma said, this is very auspicious for Sri Vidya. Mm. And as the three of them watched, now okay, let's go regress. Sri Vidya is, Caroline has a picture of it here, Sri Vidya's is patroness is the goddess Lalita, who is also called Tripura Sundari, the most beautiful in the three worlds, or Rashi. And she's always represented as being red. Her color is red. That means her vibratory rate is the color, is what vibrates as the color red. So she's always known as being red. So that being said, the three of them were looking at Anandamayi Ma, who always wears spotless white clothes, has a light complexion and dark black hair. And as before their very eyes, Ma started to turn red. And they said her clothes became red, her face became red, her hair became red. And as they watched in amazement, she started this stream of mantras from her mouth, speaking. And as she was speaking, it went on for like 15 minutes. Swami Satchidananda turned to them and said, she's speaking the mantras of Sri Vidya, the whole mantras. And she spoke the whole thing, and they listened, and then she stopped, and her natural color returned, and she smiled, and she said, come tomorrow, and Swamiji will show you the puja for Sri Vidya. So they went the next day, and Swamiji said, Ma just gave you a direct download of Sri Vidya. It was a total Shakti pot. That means the direct imparting of energy. So he said, I want to see what degree you received it, so I need to know how much you remember, and how much you remember, I will teach you that much of the puja, because it's very complex. So how many of the mantras do you remember? And Ashok said, Ma was just like speaking so fast, I don't remember any of them. He said, try. So he said that he and his wife looked at each other, and when their eyes locked, he said it was the strangest thing. They just started in perfect sequence, started speaking the whole thing. And they spoke for 15 minutes, every mantra that Ma said.
Wow.
They said it was so strange because they had no idea, it just happened. And Swamiji listened, he said, okay, that's what I thought. It was the full thing. So he taught them both the Sri Vidya Puja and the whole practice and all the meditation and the mantras and everything. And this is what he's passed on to our Mashoranam ashram. Listen to this. So he would also say, Ma is Sri Vidya. So this is Tantra. This is Tantra. The Divine Mother manifesting, showing how to find her, and the tools, giving the tools to use to find her, and practicing this and having the direct experience of the Divine Mother. This is Tantra.
I love hearing this. Thank you.
And
sharing your passion for all of it.
Makes my hair stand and just thinking of her turning red.
I want to speak, if I may, for a moment, just about this Western idea of what sacred sexuality, or I call it NeoTantra, but it's often just called Tantra. And I know in the West, I was sharing with you before, I sometimes even have Indian students that will approach me for, let's say, tantric massage or something, which that's nothing to do with what we've been talking about today. It's a misnomer,
but that's how it's known now.
Right, that's how it's known. So it's been co-opted by the West, and some of these words misused and misrepresented. And for any of you that are curious, you can go and check out on my Facebook page where this is what I'm authorized to teach, the sacred sexuality aspect. But my understanding in classical Tantra, the sexual practices or sexual sadhana, it's the tiniest little part of the secret teachings that you have to have been really steeped in the teachings before you even get to such practices.
Yeah. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Where you are. Let me interject something. There are different branches and there are strange permutations of Tantra, but in classical Tantra, there is what's called the heroic pose, where And the perfect example of this is Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa. Where people are familiar with Sri Ramakrishna, who was this great divine being who lived in Bengal at the end of the 19th century. He was the guru of Swami Vivekananda, who brought the Eastern yoga to the West back in the early 1900s, who founded the Vedanta Society and Ramakrishna Mission. He went through all the practices of spirituality current in that time, and he was taught by this wonderful tantric teacher, Bhairab Brahmani, all the real esoteric tantra. And there was one night where she brought all the things to give the heroic mode, where you drink wine from a skull, and you have, it's a sexual thing where you're actually not supposed to have the sex, but you go into it. And most he did is he sat on her lap and saw her as the Divine Mother and went into samadhi. So in classical tantra, there is something called the heroic pose, where people literally train for years with different pranayamas and asanas and meditation to be able to do that particular practice one time to go to a different plateau. And this goes to consider that sexuality is a part of that. And you can't see sexuality as not a part of Tantra, because in the different kriyas we do, we try to transmute all sexual energy into tejas, which is light. So anyway, don't I interrupt.
That's okay. No, it's a rich discussion. Mostly what's practiced in the West, and I can never say this word, proselytize,
yeah.
I can never say that word, but as Tantra is around sacred sexuality, and just as you've been saying, there's nothing wrong with that,
yeah, it has
but
a
it's
place.
just totally separate
Yeah.
from these beautiful traditions and rituals that come from India. And so something that I notice with my own students, because they're often coming for what I call NeoTantra, where the main focus of the practice is around sacred sexuality and learning, for example, to have bigger, better orgasms. So for me, that is the hook to get them into the door, because I can teach all of that, but I teach them pranayama. I teach them how to actually move the energy through the nadis and how to move the energy up the chakras and through the sushumna nadi to actually have the energy coming out through the crown chakra, for example. So
And that's a tantric kriya.
no, and it's a tantra kriya. So it's weird. I was actually taught, some of the neo-tantrics have these, we call them kriyas, but like ecstatic expressions of Shakti or energy moving through the body. And some people call it this is the word they use, but the tantric wiggles. But it's the energy moving. What is this? It's the energy, that Kundalini Shakti energy actually moving through the body.
Yeah, anything connected with Kundalini is tantric. Because Kundalini is the essence of tantric. That's the Divine Mother herself stored in a coil at the space of everyone's spine. Every living being, every human being's spine, as potential enlightenment. So that any movement of that, any working with that is tantra. Yeah.
So they're aspects, very small aspects of the source tradition in Neo-Tantra, but it's been co-opted to mean something completely different. And the way the Neo-Tantrics hold it is you're actually worshipping the divine in human form in each other. So it's still, for me, a very deeply sacred practice. You're not reading from tantric texts. You're not doing Hindu puja, for example. I include mantras even with my students, like we learn bija mantras for the chakras to help, which I actually studied with a tantric guru in Varanasi, for example. But most of the neo-tantrics are just teaching you how to get off and have better sex with you.
Yeah, you're probably one of the few that integrates the two.
I'm trying to do that and to really honor source tradition, and that's a big part of what today is about, to open the door to folks. I know we've got a lot of different folks, some yogis on the screen, we've got some bhaktas on the screen, and then I'm sure we have some people tuning in from the neo-tantric perspective, but just to start opening the door to this vast subject, to start learning that there actually is a big difference.
Yeah, and a tantric sadhu, as myself, will even do a Vedic ritual in a tantric way. An example I would give of that is, I don't want to go too long into the story, Ma is also very associated with Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is considered the most powerful mantra of Sanatana Dharma. It's when its creation comes from Gayatri Mantra. And it's very Vedic, it's from the Rig Veda. And it's the ritual, it's the mantra that's given to every boy now as the coming of age ritual. You get this mantra which develops the mind and everything. And Ma reinstated the ancient practice, which it always was before the Islamic and British rule of India. Of course, girls and boys equally were given it. Absolutely. And so she reinstated that. She had Gayatri Mantra given to girls also. But within Gayatri Mantra, so at one point, our Swami Bhaskaraనంda had me initiated into Gayatri Mantra as part of my sadhana, which is a huge boost with all the ritual, with the Brahmin Pandit and everything. And when you're giving Gayatri, you also have to preface it with this Vedic chant to Surya, to the sun, and then what's called the Gayatri Pranayama and the Gayatri Nyas, which is different mudras. That's tantric. For instance, the Gayatri Pranayama mantra is done by Vedic. You see any Brahmin in the morning, they'll be doing this inner mantra. They do it all in breath, up and down. A tantric will do it totally different because it has the 7 modes of creation. It has Om Bhuhu, Om Bhuvaha, Om Swaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam. So we do it as up the center. We do it up the spine in each chakra. A Vedic practitioner wouldn't do that. A tantric practitioner uses the chakras because that's our ladder we climb up and down. So even a particular Vedic practice will be done in a different way by somebody who has a tantric background or a tantric leaning.
So we are, believe it or not, almost at time, and
I
you
can't believe
have
we just started.
I know. Maybe we'll have to do more of this sometime.
I do want to say, okay,
Yes.
if you want to see a pure tantric ritual, on May 17th, which is a Saturday, there's a doctor who lives in Fairfax, who's a wonderful man, and he's very much a part of the spiritual scene in Marin County right now. And he has a beautiful backyard space and loves doing outdoor gatherings there. He's had a lot of different musicians there and different things he does. And he invited me to do a gathering for spring. So it's going to be on Saturday, May 17th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon beginning. And I'm going to start by doing something we do in our ashram in different ways. A Havan Yagya. A Havan Yagya is a fire ritual. It's the oldest ritual in Sanatana Dharma. Back in the Vedic days, they didn't have the temples and the statues and everything. They had just the Havan Kund, the fire pit, where they kindle a fire, sanctify it with mantras, and then and it's considered the element that takes the aspiration and the mantras across to the higher worlds. And you offer ghee, that's clarified butter, and seeds into the fire with mantras. And we do it for spring. It's a very tantric. There's Vedic havans done according to the Vedic rituals, and this tantric havans. And this is a tantric havan because we're going to work with the chakras, connecting with the different elements of nature, which of course is earth, water, fire, and ether, and connecting them in ourselves, and then connecting with the elements and with the deities that rule the different elements. And then we'll all be joined with that fire and be offering mantras. And it's very participatory. People offer seeds as I offer the ghee. So we'll do that first to align ourselves with the elements of nature. And then we're going to have a kirtan with my great kirtan band. It's by invitation only, but anyone can come. But you have to contact me, and then I will give you the address and the time and everything. And I'm keeping a list of how many people are coming because we don't want to overload this garden. And it's going to be a potluck, so if you can bring something to have a little potluck afterwards. It's really going to be a wonderful time. Beautiful. I went to his space to kind of see it. Beautiful outdoor space with a stage under a tree and lots of shade and things. It's going to be beautiful. And there'll be ground sitting and also chairs.
That'll be in Fairfax, California.
But you have to contact me. You can contact me on my Facebook page through Messenger, or if you can write this down, my email is Matri Prasad, which is the name Ma gave me. Matri Prasad, M like mother, A, T like Thomas, R, P like Peter, RASAD like dog, 1008@gmail.com. And just let me know you'd like to come, and I'll send you the address and the more details and put you on the list, the participation list. So Matri Prasad 1008@gmail.com.
Thank you, Naomi.
Yeah, and I'd love to see you. It's going to be a beautiful, really fun time. We'll have time for the havan and then some kirtan, sing kirtan together, have a potluck, have time to hang out. It'll be fun.
And I'll be there too.
Good.
On your invitation.
We're going
to take one quick last question because I think this is a good one. Somebody is asking, where can one receive these sacred instructions of Tantra? Where would you recommend people go?
That's a good question. If we go over time a little, I want to answer this very thoroughly. Okay, it's a very good question. Let me give two answers to that. The first is, when I was living in India, I very much kept up with the teachers there and the teachings, and I traveled extensively. I was in that world. Since I've been back in the West, I have tried to keep a pulse on the spiritual scene here. I was invited to be a part of this thing called the Contemplative Alliance. It's an alliance of meditation teachers from really different lineages. So I know what's going on. And I will say very honestly that I can very heartily not recommend anybody I've seen so far.
Oh.
Now, I'm sure there are exceptions. I'm sure there are some genuine tantric teachers in the West. I haven't found them to date, with the exception of one. I do know the Sonoma ashram?
Oh, I haven't been there.
There's an ashram here in Sonoma. They just call it the Sonoma ashram, and it's founded and run by a tantric Indian yogi named Baba Harihara Ram. And before COVID, they would invite me to come and do Carrington there on a Sunday once a month. And I got to know him quite well. And he is from the Agora branch of Tantra, which is traditionally the Agora Tantras are the most severe. Like
we're really getting into the meat right
This
at
is
the
like
end.
Tantra 101. They like meditate on corpses and cremation grounds and do all these weird rituals, very intense. This Baba Ram's guru was a great saint in Varanasi who updated the tradition. He gentrified it. He took out all the weird, creepy stuff and made it more relevant to modern society. And he passed this on to Baba Ram, and Baba Ram teaches that. It's a cleaned up Agora tantric thing, but it's very genuine. And I have a great regard for him. I think he's a very genuine tantric sadhu. That's called the Sonoma ashram. It's a very simplified form, but he keeps the essence of what it is. Now, as far as all these different kriyas and things, like I say, I was taught what I was given. So I want to answer this question this way. I say this in love. I'm not trying to, the person who ever asked this question, I'm not trying to correct you. I want to answer the question this way. We mentioned earlier, we as sadhaks and sadhikas, practicing spiritual discipline, we have to daily purify our motive and really keep checking our motive. Why do we want to know something? So ask yourself, why do you want to know Tantra? Too many people get in it for the wrong reason. Oh, it's like the top of the line, it's going to be more powerful, it'll make me more powerful. These are all the wrong reasons. For any spiritual practice, there should be one motivation. It's when I went to Anandamayi Ma, it's what I asked her. I want to know God. I want to know myself. I want to know truth. However we define this, there's different ways to define it. I want to know what is. I want to practice something that will take me closer to God, take closer to my own self. Now, if it is Tantra, fine. But if you're interested in Tantra, well, my suggestion would be, and it brings me to one of Anandamayi Ma's most important sayings that she said, take a practice and work with it. It can be very simple. You can just take any name of whatever form of the Divine Mother you feel attracted to. Say it's Durga, and you could just say, or Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Saraswati. Like that, just a simple mantra. You can even say Om. Ma is a beautiful mantra. Ma is the way we invoke the Mother most commonly. With all these complicated mantras, most often we say Ma, Om Ma. Take a mantra, learn to repeat it with the breath, and practice what we call dharana in the Patanjali lineage.
Just concentration,
yeah,
right?
Just learning to put the mind on that mantra, and when it runs off, which it will, because the mind does that, bring it back. And just set aside a time every day to just sit and do that japa of the mantra of the Divine Mother with the breath. Because no matter what practice you eventually receive, whether you're doing 20,000 different kriyas and floating about in the air, it all comes down to you have to have perfect concentration of mind to progress in spiritual life. And to do that, you have to learn dharana. And dharana is simple. Putting your mind on the object of meditation, when it runs off, putting it back 10 million times. And this, and no matter what practice you'll be given later, it all comes down to you have to learn how to do this dharana. And the practice will be having that concentration and repeating it within yourself. Now here's the thing that Ma said, which I think is one of the most important things. She said, you don't have to go looking for a practice, looking for a guru, looking for this and that. She said, take any simple practice that you really feel works for you. It can be anything. And if you practice it with regularity, with sincerity, with intensity, with concentration, daily, you will progress from there. And anything you need in the future will come automatically to you. If you need a teacher, if you need another practice, it will come automatically. I have seen this verified so many times in my own life, in the life of so many people. I find this particular saying of Mother so relevant. We work with what we got. And if we're not working with what we have, we won't be given more. If we're working with what we have, more will come. And it is true, in sadhana, I'll tell you from my own life, sadhana is not just one thing that happens forever. It is an organic living process. And you'll be moving along in a certain way, and there will come a time where you will need something else. Like in my life, I suddenly need a Gayatri mantra. I can tell you a whole story about that. It came to me. So something will come as needed. But the thing is, it will come because the Divine Mother is ruling all this. It's her grace. She started us all on this path of sadhana. It's only through her grace we came, only through her grace we continue. So if we take a practice and apply our willpower, our effort, our sustained effort to that, she'll see to it that everything else will come on its own. So my answer to that, my long answer to that question is, maybe I can recommend Baba Ram and Sonoma Ashram, but the main thing is, just take a practice, and if you feel attracted to the Divine Mother, use that name. Learn to concentrate on that name. Learn to relate to her in your daily life. Make a simple offering to her, because in making offerings in puja, in making an offering, you open the channel to receive grace from her. Instead of just saying, give me, you make an offering. So just have a picture of whatever form of the Devi you like. Offer her a flower, offer her some incense, offer her a light. Just make a simple practice and move forward with that, and what is needed will come to you on its own. I promise you that. Ma has said it, and Ma is truth itself.
If I may, just
Yes.
to end off, because we do need to wrap up soon, but if you're looking for actual teachers that are accessible in the West, I'm going to recommend Dr. Robert Swoboda. You can,
I've heard the name, yes.
You can look up his books and his teachings. He's even on Instagram, but he's teaching classical Tantra. And then our dear friend, I hope I can mention Ekabumi Elek.
Oh, we love Ekabumi.
He is a devotional artist and also practices Tantra. He's based in Berkeley. So there are ways that you can actually find teachers in the West. So you've got some guidance.
I'm very happy to stand corrected, because I didn't want to say that, but that's just my experience. I haven't come across you, but I have heard the name of these two people. So yeah, so there are out there, but be very discerning.
Yes, and there's also a Kali temple in the Ramakrishna lineage in Laguna Beach. So there are ways, and if you
let's recommend that. I've known these people for over 30 years. Swami Bhajanananda and Usha Harding, who wrote a book on Kali, have what's called just the Kali temple in Laguna Beach. It's a little private home. They've been there for decades, and they have the Pujari from Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna lived, came and installed that Kali. They have a very beautiful community down there, and they teach a lot of very classical things in a very correct way. So that's also a very nice resource to have, online or in person.
Yeah, you can follow Mandir. Even on Facebook. You can follow their pujas.
The Kali Mandir in Laguna Beach, very authentic.
And it's a very sattvic form in my experience as well. So you don't have to worry about getting into all the agori kind of teachings, which is more Dr. Robert Swoboda, but they're teaching in a very pure sattvic way at the Laguna Beach Temple. So we do have to wrap up here, but it's been such a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Carolyn. It's been a joy, and I can see, obviously, it's my passion to not just practice these things, but to pass them on as I can. So I'm very happy people were interested, and keep in touch. If you can come on May 17th, you got to get on the guest list, so contact me, and to see a real genuine tantric ritual.
Beautiful.
Also, we have our Matri Satsang, we study Anandamayi Ma's life and teaching every third Sunday of the month, 1 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. You can look on my Facebook page or on my website, mangalananda.org, and there's the link there. It's the same link every month. You're welcome to that.
I put that on the Facebook
We're doing the advertisements
page.
Now. You want to do the
Oh
advertisements?
yeah, no, I don't need to advertise. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes,
we got to as many of your questions as we could. And perhaps we'll do this again, because there's way more that we can.
It seems like it could be an interesting venue to explore.
Anyway, we'll see. Thank you again so much.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.